Steve, Adventure Overlanding. And this is our fourth episode of Adventure Stories with Steve. And today we're going to be talking about a bear hunt in Saskatchewan, Canada. And actually with this particular bear. This was the only time I've ever had a chance to hunt Canada, at least up to this point. It was a couple of guys and myself had finally decided that we were going to hunt spring bear in Canada. So we arranged this particular hunt and we drove all the way to Saskatchewan. Took a couple of days to get there. We did stay overnight in Saskatoon on the way. And when we had gotten to camp, this particular little village was at the end of nowhere. There were no roads any further north than where we were at. This town was basically the end of the line on this particular batch of roads. So that was kind of interesting for us. But in the camp was a lodge scenario, so we actually stayed in a lodge. There wasn't any camping outside or tent camping or anything. So we had pretty good meals and you know, sleeping accommodations and so forth. So to get to the hunt, we started hunting actually fairly quickly here. And in spring bear hunting, we really only hunt in the afternoons. Mornings we would actually help with baiting and going through different locations and setting up stands and again carrying out bait. It was kind of interesting. I had done very little baiting for bear up to this point, so it was interesting. So because this is so far north and it was in the spring, it would stay light until 10:30. It was quite late by the time we actually got from our hunt, our afternoon hunts, and then got back and got fed. We were usually eating supper at midnight. And that was pretty normal then for that time of year anyway. So one of the first hunts, I got a chance to go out, and I actually had bear sightings right away. I had a fairly lanky looking bear come in. He must have seen me move or something in the stand. He came in not within shooting distance, but came in fairly close, I would say 50 yards or so, and then kind of, you know, just walked away. It was okay because he looked so young, immature because of how lanky he was. Some of that was probably have to do, of course, with the spring bear hunt. And a little while later, I had a sow and a cub came in, and that's when I realized that this particular lanky bear was not so young. It was a fairly large bear, just not a lot of weight. So that was a little disappointing the first night, but we did see, you know, bear sightings, all three of us, and the other guys in camp, you know, off and on. It wasn't very often where we wouldn't see anything. That, if I recall anyways, that first evening hunt, I actually did have a partner that I had gone with shoot a bear that night. And the guides and the outfitter would not go out at night looking after that bear after light. It was too thick. They called the bush the woods, and it was too thick to be able to see clearly with flashlights or enough, just in case you know, that bear was wounded. So we waited till the next day, and one of the guys had actually brought a handheld camcorder, which was the thing at this time. As you can tell, this was a few years ago. So I actually got to record the recovery walking behind him, and the excitement and excitement in everyone's voices and jumping up and down. We had found his particular bear. Well, it was a very large bear. The only bad thing about it was during the night sometime, the wolves had actually found this bear, and it had expired right away. But had eaten 1/4 of this bear already, and of course that would then ruin the hide and everything else. This bear actually scored Boone and Crockett. I don't remember the skull size. I'm thinking it was 20, but I don't recall. It was a really large bear. The outfitter had said that this is one of the largest bears that they had ever gotten from a hunt in this area. So my partner was pretty excited. Short story, he basically did a full body mount of this bear and acted though when he did a full body mount that it was coming out of the wall, so that way he could cover up that quarter that had gotten eaten. Anyways, so that was quite exciting for all of us to be able to get that close to bears. I had hunted bear one time prior, and the other guys had not, so it was quite interesting. A couple of days go by, and then one of the other guy that I went with had also shot a medium-sized bear, but he was very happy about it. This time of year, there was still ice because we were so far north. There was still ice on the lakes, so usually when you shoot a bear during the day, of course you're not going to be hunting, but you would go out fishing. I couldn't do that because there was still ice out, but as the week progressed while we were there, the ice did come out, and the two guys plus, whoever had gotten bears up to that point actually got to do some northern fishing and so forth. So it was getting towards the end of the hunt. There were basically, out of a half a dozen guys at this particular camp, there were two of us that had not shot a bear at that point. I don't remember where he was from, but he was a gun hunter. I was archery, of course, as you know. And so the outfitter decided to take us to an area that had not been hunted that year. This was the first hunt that he had scheduled, so that's why the ice was still there. We were fairly early in the spring. And so he took myself and the other guy that had hunted with gun and out to a really remote area that he thought we would have a good chance to find, a good-sized bear for both of us. So in the afternoon we go out again, as I mentioned, and I'm sitting there, and I actually had a couple of yearlings bear coming through and chasing back and forth, climbing trees. How fast, I remember that specifically, is how fast they could climb those pine trees. It amazed me how fast they could go up. And actually, I was kind of scared about that because I didn't realize that they could climb that fast. It was quite interesting. So I watched those yearlings go by, and then because of the two of them, I could kind of determine their size, that they weren't very large and so forth. A couple hours go by, and I actually hear a shot. Now, this area was so remote and only had the one outfitter that was guiding bear in this area that we wouldn't have heard shots from anywhere except from someone based out of our camp. So now I knew that I was on my own. I was the only guy in camp that did not have a bear at this point. So I'm kind of thinking about this, and I had, I believe, 1 or 2 days left of hunting. And I know the other guys were itching to go home because, they had had their bears for some time already, and the fishing was okay, but it wasn't a high priority. They enjoyed it for a few days. So anyways, I decided that probably the next thing that I would see as a decent-sized bear, I would go ahead and take. So a bear came in, and I didn't see it as, a medium-sized bear, but I must have moved somehow, and this bear got interest in me. Now, one of the things the outfitter told us is never have to worry about a large bear. Okay, his opinion was that large bears wouldn't have anything to do with people. But it was the teenagers that you had to be more concerned about. They did not have the fear of human and so forth because it was such a vast wilderness area that they would rarely see humans anyways. I had a bear come in, as I said, and I must have moved or made some noise, and this bear starts climbing my tree. I'm in a stand 15 feet up, and he's climbing up right alongside the steps that I came up with. And I'm kind of using a low, growly voice, and you get down, bear, and that kind of thing. And he doesn't seem to be deterred by that. but he's not coming up fast. He's coming up very slow and kind of stopping and trying to determine what I am. And he'd move a few more steps and the same thing, he would kind of stop. So I'm to the point where, because all I have for protection is my bow, that I'm going to start drawing my bow. So I am prepared so that he doesn't decide just to come up and basically attack me. Don't know what it was. I think there might have been another bear that he had heard, seen, smelt, or whatever, or something else, but something caught his attention, and he actually went down, not fast, he wasn't afraid of me, and then walked away. A little while later, again, some few hours, still light out, of course, and it's not getting where the point where I'm concerned about dark or end of shooting light, but it was a few hours more, and I had this bear come in. And based on the bait pile and tree sizes and so forth, I decided that it is a shooter. I could go ahead and shoot this. So I shoot the bear. I don't get down. I stay where I'm at, because that's kind of what we were told. And we all had radios, so I had contacted the outfitter and said, yes, I did get a shot at one. And he happened to be over and was recovering one already. And of course, I'm still assuming that, yes, it's the guy with the gun. Come to find out, I was right. It was him. They both showed up at my stand, and they were helping out recovering the bear. We get to the bear. It is not a large bear at all. It's medium-sized to small. Smallish is more, as you can probably tell here. And so cover the bear. Everyone's having a good time, and we had a great, if you will, meal that night with everyone, 100% of the camp getting a bear. There were a few color phase bears, and again, the big one I was telling you about. So it really was a very good hunt. It was very interesting, as I've never hunted that kind of scenario before. And being out odd hours of the night, for me anyways, at midnight, and you know, seeing the sun go down at really late was also interesting. So it was a very good hunt, and I haven't done it since. But I would like to try it again, do it again sometime. One little side note I would like to say, and do this quickly here. My son was at the local high school, was part of their plays. He part of the theater there, and he really enjoyed that. So one of their plays had a chance that they needed a caveman, and they were trying to come up with uniforms and so forth. Well, my son ended up with that particular role. He was the caveman, and we actually used this hide to wrap over him to make him look like a caveman. It was kind of fun. We got to actually use it, and I didn't have it, like I said, set up for a rug or anything, so he could actually just tie it around him and make him look like a caveman. That was kind of fun. Good memories there also. Anyways, I've got some more bear stories, if you will. Well, one of them has to do with an elk hunt that actually had a bear, actually what I believe was tracking me on the same trail. And we'll get into that some other time. And one other bear story in the state of Wisconsin for a baited fall hunt, where my dad actually did some videotaping, and his videotape was of, again, a bear coming up his stand. He actually got to lean out over the stand and take and video as it was coming up. That one was coming up fast. He got scared by another bear, and this smaller bear was running away from this other bear. So we'll do those too. But anyways, again, this is Steve with Adventure Overlanding, and on to our next adventure.
Yay! On to our next adventure!